Hello, and welcome to my podcast, Good Grief. My name is Dr. Christine Malone, and in this podcast, we talk about trauma, tragedy, and survival. In each episode, I will interview someone that has gone through grief in some way, and we will discuss the impact it has had on their life. By sharing these stories, we hope that others won't feel alone should they be going through similar situations. Enjoy. Okay, yes, thanks so much for joining us today. My guest today is going to tell us a little bit about the grief that she experienced when she's lost her childhood best friend. So go ahead and just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, when asked about this, I thought, gee, what might not have been covered in some of your podcasts? Because certainly, if you had to rate losses, right, from 1 to 10, while losing your best friend from childhood is significant, it's in a whole different category than other losses, like the loss of a child or others that you can imagine, or even a parent, especially when you're young. But it's something that happened in my life a couple of years ago. I'm the youngest of three, and neither of my siblings have had that experience yet. So usually as the youngest, I can draw upon what they did well or didn't do well through a new experience. And this was, unique for me. So we'd been friends since about 10 years old. Her name was Jackie Salerno, from a big Italian, wonderful family in New Jersey. And I'm from a small, not Italian family in New Jersey. And we both grew up in a little mile square town, and we met on the softball field in 5th grade. She was a pitcher and I was a shortstop, and she was really good at it. And that's what stood out. We just started, being friends. And by the time we got to the dreaded middle school years, we were each other's crutch for what life was bringing as a middle school, 13, 14, 15-year-old girl. And Jackie had a dream of being a cheerleader. And she actually loved this book, Name the Cheerleader. Took place in Bennington, Vermont area, and so on. It was just an adorable teenage love story, but oh boy, it was our Bible on how to talk to boys and everything you think in the 70s back then, because that's your goal is a boy gonna like me, kind of thing. But she wanted to be a cheerleader. I didn't want to be a cheerleader. I didn't want to stand in front of anybody. She wanted to stand in front of everybody, and she needed a person to try out with. Everything had to be in pairs. Begged me, please try out with me. Doesn't matter if you make it or not, because you don't want to be a cheerleader, but please try out. So we did. And I did it with her, and we would go to my grandmother's house, who had a very long, wide mirror to make sure that our arms were in sync, and did everything cheerleaderish that you were supposed to do. And we both became cheerleaders. Much to my chagrin, I became a cheerleader. and our friendship continued to deepen because we were at practices together, and then the boyfriends kicked in, and all the things you go through with your best friend, who understands you in a way, or you're convinced at that age your own parents could never understand you, and other people could never understand you. And you ask each other questions like you might even have the answer when neither of you has any experience to get through any of it, but you have each other. And so that was us through high school. And I had she was there for me when the high school boyfriend and I broke up. She was there for me when my now husband entered my life, and he was, like the town bad boy from the next town over. So the 4.0 girl dating the bad guy was not supposed to be a good mix, and so on. But she stood by me the whole way. She had the first boyfriend who was a crud, but I supported her to point out, you don't deserve him being a crud, but I'm here for you no matter, and so on. I developed I would call it a low-level eating disorder in college. She was one of the first people to say, "What the heck are you doing? That's ridiculous that you've lost that much weight." And so I'm like, "Yeah, I think you're right." And, cut it out kind of thing. She told my sister, who confronted me, things like that. Her aunt was dying our first year of college. So she was where she was, I was where I was, and everything was a payphone. I had no money to call her and talk to her regularly about the distress over her aunt dying, who was like a second mother to her. So what do? I called her number and I charged it to my father's business and talked to her time after time after time. I thought, well, if I get in trouble, then at least it's for a good reason. And I did get caught. My father's office assistant finally showed the phone bill to my father and said, Susie's been using our line to talk to so and so. And so I paid him back, and explained. He says, I can't be mad at you for helping Jackie, but yeah, you owe us whatever. So things like that we just would technically break the law to help each other through so much. And then flash forward our marriages, we built, and everything was parallel for us in so many ways. But the most beautiful thing is that I had this really great guy friend in high school, and got together with my best girlfriend. They ended up married. And then she was, she loved my boyfriend despite he was the wild one, kind of thing. We just stuck by each other's weddings. She had daughters, just daughters. I had just daughters. Everything we did was parallel. When her husband got sick, my husband got sick. We both had husbands with challenges early on in our marriages that, gee, what a surprise. So our lives were just so parallel, and we just ended up saying, oh, we're just going to get old together. So you flash forward and you're busy with your kids, and we didn't get to see each other and talk to each other as much, but we always stayed in touch. And then her husband had a very terrible weightlifting accident. He had rheumatoid arthritis, and worked out almost every day as a high school teacher to keep all of his joints as mobile as they could. Well, one day his workout partner wasn't available. So he, as she said, foolishly went and worked out anyway. And he had a weightlifting accident where the bar came across his throat. Long story short, 5 people got their miracle through his organ donation, but he didn't make it. So this is when we were in our 40s, and Jackie never recovered. And she lived in fear that my husband was going to die, because her husband died and we do everything in parallel. And I said, Jackie, he already died, but they saved him on the table and he got a stent. We don't know why he's moving forward and John isn't, but we still both went parallel. It's just that there's no explanation. She never recovered. The only way I can describe it is she never joined the world again, but she really rose the occasion to be, her kids were 19 and almost 16 when he died. And she really rose the occasion, getting them through the grieving, and immediately finding a really great therapist for the 3 of them to talk to individually and together. She said, well, you let your daughter go to Australia. I'll let mine now go to Italy. If you could do it, I could do it. And let her daughters thrive. And they're thriving to this day. But about 6 years into all this, she was diagnosed with a very rare sarcoma. And I get a chill thinking about it. So I hadn't heard from her in a couple of days. And she had been talking about not feeling that well, but she was not a big complainer. So one day I just texted her and I said, wherever you are right now, I'm praying for you and I'm here for you. And that was literally 2 minutes after she was told she was already pretty much terminal. That by the time she was diagnosed, because this sarcoma, leiomyosarcoma, was of a type, the symptoms don't surface very much until it's severely metastasized. She made it 10 months somehow, when probably it should have been in the range of 4, but she was determined to show her daughters some determination and get everything in order for when, and for her mother as well, who was a widow, when it was her time. And so I got to be with her the day before she passed. That was a gift, because she wouldn't let anybody else in our crowd come see her at the end. And when her daughter said, and I live 2 hours away, and her daughter called, can you come? Of course I can, so I did. And then when I was with her, she said, again, why did John have to die? And I see him, he's right here. I said, yeah, he's right there over to the left. And she said, why did he have to die? I said, because he needed to wait for you. And she goes, but I don't want to go anywhere yet. I said, then don't. I said, but when the time is right, you'll know. So it was beautiful that I got to be with her at the worst time of her family's life. And, but the beauty that came of that, in watching her two daughters, who are now, one's the husband, one's the fiance, Jackie was smaller than I am, lift her from room to room. They slept there for a week, the two boys and the daughters, to see her through. I've never seen such a thing, Christine. I don't know if I ever will. The beauty and the love radiating that the entire week. I was there actually 2 days total, stuffed in 2 days. And God gave me the role of getting her mother talking. So she just told me her whole life story, even though I had probably heard it 5 times prior. And because they're like, get my mother, the siblings were like, keep my mother busy, so I did. And I was a source of comfort to her mother after she died, until she couldn't talk to me anymore. And I expected it. That's a whole nother story, why I knew that was coming, because then the pain became too much that my girls got married. They're two out of, I'm a grandma. I'm now things Jackie didn't have the opportunity to experience here on earth. So I understand why her mother's about 93, still has her mind, doing great. And I'll see her for the first time in 4 years at her one daughter's wedding that's coming up. So they invited me. So it's going to be very emotional, but that's okay.
I would imagine for the mom, I mean, I don't think it'd be any surprise for anybody that what she's feeling is she sees you and she knows that you represent what happened with Jackie and how sad.
Well, and it's those feelings. Why does she get to have these beautiful things in her life? And my daughter and Jackie was a treasure. Why? She's been very busy with why. And I'm a pastor, and on one of my first sermons when I became a pastor was, when good things happen to us, do we ever say why? Do we ever say, why me? Why'd that good thing happen to me? Maybe sometimes. When something bad happens, do we ever say, well, why not us? It happened to that person down the road. Why not me? It's a struggle for all of us, and no judgment on anything. So Jackie was always that person who, one of a kind, the depth of our knowledge of each other. So I was one of those people, once I got out of high school and I got into the professional world, and I don't know, I just put it all behind me. Like, I didn't do the crazy things I did, right? Oh, not, I was past all that. I don't know. But then I'd talk to Jackie and I'd be right there. Well, you were the one driving 12 of us in your car dangerously to the next party, or, whatever it was, just saying, well, Susan, what about the time you did this or that? And she kept all of us in that group of friends. She kept us grounded, and we laughed and never stopped laughing. No, I mean, my husband always say, I never heard you laugh like that as much as when you're on the phone with her. And I said, yeah, because we're laughing at ourselves. We're laughing at what we've said and done, now and then. And the thing about losing your best friend since childhood is that can never be recreated.
Nope.
So I have wonderful friends in my life that I feel very close to, and I still have some high school friends that you're bonded to. But then there's that one particular friend that knew you through the very worst, because you could trust her with it, knew you through everything, and still thought you were okay. And the closest relationship I have to that now is my husband. I'm very, very blessed that we have that together, that he has seen the worst and the best, and I'm still on the top of his list, and vice versa. So he has a friend that he's been friends with since first grade. I knew his friend before I knew him, and he's already lost both his parents. Who knows down the road if he'll have that experience. Hopefully not for a very long time or ever. But he's all ears to hear about the difference of, when that friend passes or that person. There's that little bit of difference when it's almost like a family member. They knew you when, and a part of your past goes with them.
Yeah.
And so you have to grieve that and cope with that.
Yeah, it's kind of like a sibling relationship, if you have a really good relationship with your sibling, right? I mean,
Exactly. Of course. Yeah.
You shared, like you were sharing, where she brings up silly things that you all did that, you're all grown up now, but those silly things happened, and how fun those memories are and so on. And to not have anyone else really that, shares that, right? You can share your stories about those things, but that person you're sharing it with wasn't there. So they don't really know, right, how that felt and what the fun was and the exhilaration and so on. And that's part of what you miss when someone has has passed. So how long has it been since she passed away?
It's just past 4 years already.
Okay.
It's the blink of an eye. So 2019. And then I became grateful that she missed the pandemic. I'm really grateful that she didn't have to go through that. Her daughters, she had asked me to stay in touch with her daughters, and I do. And they have a very good support system with other family members, but obviously it's not, the same. And here's another parallel or connection to me and Jackie. So when her older daughter got married in 21, they were so excited for me to be there. Block Island, this big thing, and it was only about the wedding was seven. Well, how many? The wedding was 4 weeks before my daughter was due with her first baby. I said to my husband, "I can't go." I said, "I'm terrified to go because I'm going to cry through the whole thing." That's number one. I said, but the main thing was I don't want to be that far away from my daughter when she's only 4 weeks out. Now that's tied to the fact that my first daughter was even more preemie than that. Okay. So that's a whole nother memory. And she's going to be 30 soon. All ended well. Right. So that being said, I don't go to the wedding, and they were accepting of it. And there were a couple of high school friends that of my, ilk, they invited in memory of their parents. Well, do you know, my granddaughter was born on that wedding day.
Mm.
Another link. It was like Jackie was saying, yeah, don't go. I can't tell you why, but don't go. And I didn't go. And that baby was born the same day.
That's
And I
beautiful.
thought, God's plan,
Yeah.
somebody's plan. So another parallel in our lives. And I'll never forget her daughter's anniversary as a result.
Yes, yes. Oh, it's
Yeah.
very sweet. I love that story.
Yeah.
So, as the time has gone by, I mean, when you think about, grieving the loss of that relationship,
Mm.
I be honest, I'm quite envy you for having had that relationship because I would have loved to have, but not all of us have that blessing.
Mm.
What do you, I mean, what would you say is helpful to you in this last 4 years when you think of Jackie and what she
Mm.
means and meant to you and what she brought to your life and so on? What helps you kind of
Yeah.
move through those memories when they come?
Gratefulness. It's very easy for me to respond. Gratefulness because the relationship existed, and
Yeah,
because I was blessed to have someone in my life like her, right?
yeah,
So I'm grateful. And all the good things that I always said she was, that I wasn't as good at, if you want to call it that, um, it bring it forward, bring it forward. The other thing I learned is that I don't ever believe that there'll be a relationship like that again, because just the history alone isn't there. My husband be the closest, because I've known him since I was 20, and he knew about me since I was 16. Like, that's as close as it gets, right? Um, but to keep her memory alive, that's what I do, or what I try to do. I'm not a social media person. When she died, I would not talk to her on social media, like talk to a dead person on Facebook. It's not for me. And I didn't even put, oh, my best friend died and I'm sad today, for people to put up there my condol. I told all the high school friends, I'm not doing that. Do what you want,
mhm,
but I'm not doing that, because I'm not looking for condolences on my Facebook page when you have these two daughters who are early 20s with no parents. I said, I just can't go there. And then his siblings and his mother and her mother. And so I felt like I honored her more by keeping it all in my heart and bringing it forward for who she was. Try to be as good as I think she always was. She was just always so good to everybody. I don't know if she was really good at, one of our terrible things that we did was make fun of a lot of people between the two of us. We were really bad about that. She would get on, she goes, did you see so and so on Facebook? Oh my gosh, don't you think she had a boob job, or things like that. It's a terrible thing to admit, but she would start the conversation and I'd laugh through the whole thing, and I'm like, I think you're right, whatever. And
yeah,
so that was another thing that was just between the two of us. But then the other side of it was the kindness that she put out to her entire family, anybody who crossed her path, always. And that's what you want to bring forward from a relationship that you lost to, to others. I don't even know. I was talking to someone this morning about it, where it says in the Bible, and I know Paul said it, that our pain, getting through our pain, is meant for us to use it to help others. And I'm not saying I've succeeded at it, but it's certainly a goal,
Yeah, no, I firmly believe that, which is one of the main reasons behind this podcast and my recent book and the work that I do. Getting into teaching for me was all that, to just kind of pay it forward, some of the lessons I learned and so on. So I completely completely understand that, and I agree with that.
Christine, you seem to do that in everything you do. Everything
Well, thank
you
you.
do.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
think there's a lot under the surface that people don't see, but I do try my best to do like what you're doing with Jackie's memories, and just, keep it going forward. But so last question I have for you is just if you had, someone that you were talking to who had the similar experience, just this awesome best friend from, childhood that you've just grown with, and they've suddenly passed, what would you offer to them? What would you say? Hey, this is helpful, this isn't helpful. I mean, do you have anything that you would even have to say about that?
Yeah, yeah. The first piece of if you can find your way to being grateful that you had that kind of relationship, that's a process, right? To be grateful. You bring your pain forward to others if you can, and that's not for everybody. I realize grief is so personal. But the other thing that I was ready to accept, or willing to accept, is it's gone. There will never be a relationship like that again. And that was the shocker, like, whoa, that can't ever be again. Just can't. And you have friendships that are sort of imitatable or replaceable, or someone new comes into your life and they kind of fill that little hole. But this is a hole that it might get smaller, but it can't get filled. And but it's not as big as other holes that may come into your heart, right? But it's still there and it can't be filled 100%. There's other losses that in my life that I've had where the hole closes and I get through it, and and it makes room for a new friendship, a new relationship that's beautiful in its own new way. And it almost replaces, if you want to call it that. But this is, I would say, be ready to accept that the hole gets smaller, but it doesn't close, because
Yeah.
some relationships are once in a lifetime,
Yeah.
between you and that person. So,
Yeah, I think that's great advice. I think I would add to that, with some of the losses I've had, is that hole, the description of the hole doesn't ever really fill, but I can think of all the wonderful memories, and those wonderful memories make up for, the pain that you have, because you'll
yeah.
always have those, right? It's just,
Oh, yeah.
you always have those memories, and thinking back on
But
it.
I'm reaching an age where, like, my kids don't want to hear these stories. I mean, I probably end up telling them over and over again, but they don't really want to hear it. So I'm finding, oh, I never in my life thought that I would want to stay as connected to the high school crowd. I wasn't against it. I'm just saying, like, we're all turning, we're all getting into our 60s. So we're finding comfort in those relationships more than ever, because we knew each other when. So that's a beautiful thing that's come from losing Jackie, at a young age. Her and her husband were very central to our high school class.
Yeah.
And because they were dating in high school, there was always Jackie and John, so yeah, yeah. So
Well, Susan, thank you so much for sharing your story with me and our guests. I really appreciate it. Again, like I said, as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking, gosh, I would love to have had something like that in my life. So yes, you were truly blessed. And again, thank you so much. Thank you for listening to this episode of Good Grief. To hear more about my personal story, please pick up a copy of my book, The Day I Became the Spider Killer, a memoir of trauma, tragedy, and survival, available in paperback, Kindle, and Audible. via Amazon, Barnes& and Noble, and other online book retailers.